I'm Basic Becca, and you're listening to the 3 Count Podcast.
When in it, an unbelievable weight that you might hate, but you can't even.
During high class, we find that drag ball that.
Now entering the
Welcome
ring.
everybody to another great edition of the 3 Count Podcast presents Now Entering the Ring. I'm your host, Clifford Red Dog Miller. That's right, the man that leads you up this mountain called wrestling. Your Sherpa, if you may, or sire, or king. You know, whatever you want to call me. I don't really care. But it's never about me. It's about who's entering the ring. And if you look now, you see her. She's a close personal friend of mine. She is an award-winning author. You can find her with her books on Goodreads.com. You can also find her on Amazon with her big titles, Continental Breakfast, as well as Submission. She is the amazing Ella Dominguez.
Hello, thank you for having me. Well, that's quite an introduction. I appreciate it.
Yeah. I'm so excited to have you on because, you know, we know each other through a mutual friend of ours, Antonio Padilla, who actually we had on the show. But yeah, we had you on, and, you know, you've been able to like create characters and stories and these, you know, storylines that draw you in as a reader. And yeah, I was like, how am I not bringing this person on my show to ask her questions about character development and how to continually like captivate audiences? And I was like, duh, let's go get her.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So my first question for you is, who is Ella Dominguez?
I'm a respiratory therapist by day. So I'm a working individual. I'm a mom. And then also I'm an author, writer. When I say author, that always is a little intimidating to me. I write stories. So author sounds so, like professional. I don't know. Yes, I have published books, but that's what I am. I'm a writer. I tell the stories that my characters tell me to tell me to write down. But yeah.
It's interesting that you say that, like, your characters tell you to write down. Like one, I'm kind of curious, like, what inspired you to like start writing and kind of moved you into like to be a writer? But I'm gonna say to be an author.
So I have had stories in my head for as long as I can remember. I just didn't know what to do with them. It never occurred to me to have them published. It just didn't. I just thought, oh, this is just my imagination sort of doing its own thing, as long as I can remember. And I would jot these stories down in very rough draft form. It was never like, if I were to show them to you, it'd be more like random thoughts and notes, like a diary sort of. And it wasn't until I got a little older that I started actually writing it into a story form. But it never occurred to me to actually publish them until probably about not quite 10 years ago. But
Oh, that's awesome. So I'm very curious though, because this is a wrestling podcast. Were you ever a wrestling fan?
look, I was engaged to someone who was very heavily into it. And so I sort of got sucked into it, not voluntarily at first, but because he was such a hardcore fan. It was like, this was probably back in the, early 90s up until the early 2000s. So I watched it with him.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it, I think, because I saw how enthusiastic he was about it.
I feel like that's what normally like captivates people. It's not, you can like something, but then like you see somebody else's passion for it and it just like sucks you in. And then you're just, wow. Because it doesn't matter whether it's like a good book or maybe like a good movie or TV show, even wrestling, sports wise, like just, it's always like a passion of somebody else that draws you into it. So it's very interesting that someone else kind of pulled you in, but then like you kind of like, at first, like you said, it wasn't voluntary, but then it became voluntary.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm curious, like, this is like one of my big questions. I was actually just can't wait to like get to, but what is the best way to, in your opinion, to draw an audience in?
I think, I'm still trying to figure that out myself as I go from story to story. But I think you just sort of have to tap into something that makes them a little bit uncomfortable. The best writing advice I ever read was that if you feel uncomfortable writing it, your reader's going to feel uncomfortable reading it. And that's good, because people say that they like to read nice and safe things. But the fact is, the things that stick with them the most, the characters, the stories, are the dangerous ones, are the ones that make them uncomfortable and make them step outside of their comfort zone or step over that boundary. And so for me, that's what I try to do. I try to write characters that they don't necessarily like at first, that they have questions about. Don't get me wrong, I want to write a lovable character and a likable character, but I want that to come as they get to know the character.
It's interesting too, because I think about that stuff too, and just the way like you're talking about it, and like especially like in the wrestling world, or just pretty much in any media form, like it's always those characters that make you feel uncomfortable that you get drawn to the
Yes,
most.
I agree.
It's
as a reader, that's what I'm drawn to. You know, I do like a likable character, and I like sweet romance to a degree, but I like the danger. I want to read someone that has flaws. I want to see someone that has flaws, but has a kind heart, you know? And so that's what I try to tap into. I try to write a character that they love to hate or they hate to love.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, I know like my wife was she was watching The Handmaid's Tale, and like she wants to read the book, but she obviously watched the TV show first, and
Mhm.
she's like I have to read this book, but she talks about the characters and how much she like doesn't like one character versus another, and you could tell like certain characters, because she even said it, she's like, this is like a lot to ingest, and I think
Yes.
about that too. I'm just like, wow, like that's the art of a good character, because even like in the wrestling world, like you know, a lot of people remember characters. They don't really remember like the people, but they remember like who they were and like what they, because more people will talk about like, well, I love The Rock. Well, why did you love The Rock? Well, because he was like a badass, right? So you just remember that character. And then, you know, some other people will be like, I like Rey Mysterio because he's always been like the good guy, and he's always had like the colorful outfits. And so you remember those characters, but you just don't remember like the person per se.
Right.
So I'm curious though, like with my next question, when it comes to evolving a character or making changes, what are some of the pitfalls that you've seen?
I think rushing a character's development too quickly. I mean, we know in real life that personality change does not come quickly or easily. And I understand why authors do it. They have to tell a story within so many pages. You know, whether they plot that out as one book or a series of 15. But I think that's the pitfall, is they try to rush a love story along too quickly. You know, you have to show a gradual progression of, you know, how they're getting better, what's making them a better person, what's helping their personality not be so, you know, I write assholes, you know, I like to write those kinds of characters. And so if you've ever known one of those kinds of people, you know that it is not easy to get them to change their ways. And so, but like I said, I understand why they do it. You know, they meet the girl and then all of a sudden they're Mr. Nice Guy. We know that's not true, but
No.
I think that's a huge pitfall of the genre that I write.
Yeah, when I think about that, I'm like, you know what? Like, I see a lot of those stories where, like, you know, and something kind of like Edward Cullen said it in, you know, in Twilight, where he was like, now the lion lays with the lamb. And I was like, and then he became like this sweet dude, but it's like he was a prick the whole book. He was a prick after the book.
You know what? Look, I think, I don't know if I've ever told you, but I've always been Team Jacob. And I'm just going to say, because Jacob was nice from the get-go. But he was bad, but he was a badass when he needed to be.
Yeah, he always had that self-protection. Like he had that instinct to fight. But it was just weird how like Edward was like, no, I got to keep you at arm's distance. And like even like certain parts in the book too, like told you, like he like just would treat her like shit and just be like, nah, I don't want to talk to you. Get away from me. Like,
do you know there is a whole genre right now called bully romance that is based on bully romance, where the character is just a bully and he's mean to the girl. And this is a huge genre. And, you know, I catch myself like, I really need to write what's selling right now, but I don't know how to write that. And I'm not knocking anybody's preferences because, hey, whatever, you know, floats your boat. But
Right.
it's like, what is it about women? They just like, you know, the alpha hole, you know, they like, those alpha holes. It's like,
Well, it's weird because like even like in real life, I feel like that was always a thing where like you find like the girl, right? It's like, and you see it in the movies too, where like that girl falls in love with the dude, but the dude's kind of like a jerk, and then like mid movie, like he changes. But like in real life, like girls always I feel like it's a repeating cycle because there's always memes about it, right? Where like there's a nice guy, he falls in love with the girl who's like a real bitch, right? And then she turns the nice guy into an asshole, and then he falls in love with like a good girl who then turns him back
yes,
into a nice
the
guy.
vicious
Like,
cycle.
yeah, that's what I see. But it's like in real life, like I felt like that was a thing. Whereas like I always thought like I was a nice guy, and then like I'd always like try to talk to a nice girl, but then she's like, no, that dude over there who's selling dope and probably be locked up in like 10 years. That's the guy I want to be with. I'm like,
Okay, so here's the thing. Girls like the idea of a bad boy, but the fact is they're not going to marry the bad boy. They want to marry the good guy. That's the fact. Or they want the relationship with the good guy. They just, you know.
yeah, but
They
then
like the idea of the bad guy.
but then you have those girls who are like, but I can change him. No,
You can't.
Fun fact.
And that's what I'm talking about when I'm writing those characters and I want to show an evolution of the character. I have to do it slowly.
Right.
You know, you have to suspend disbelief to a degree. But I find a lot of readers have a difficult time, especially when he's a real jerk. They can't suspend their disbelief that much. You know, they're like, no, he was a complete jerk for 3/4 of the book. And then all of a sudden, boom, he's this nice guy. They're not buying it.
Page 475, he just also looks like, and then I fell in love with her. No, I don't buy it.
Exactly. That's right.
I agree. Because like in wrestling, like you can see like some characters, like they start off as like the good guy, and then they'll do like one random move, and they just all of a sudden turn into the bad guy. And you're just like, what spurred this? And then they come out and they cut this promo the next time, and they're like the speech this next time, and they're like, yeah, it's because of you. You did it to me. And we're like, no, I don't really buy that. I was like, I can't have that. I got to have the transition. Like there was a group of guys, they're called the Shield, right? And they start off as the bad guys, and they were knocking people down and just beating people up. But like every once in a while they would help somebody good, right? But then like over time, there was like a dude, he was like, hey, you need to go beat up that guy right now. And they're like, we'll do what's best for business. And they turned heroes on the guys, on like the bad guys, and started beating them up. And I was like, I love the Shield. And then Seth Rollins, who was like he was like the architect of the group, he turned on them. And I was like, I hate that guy. I was like, and I genuinely like was riding this roller coaster of this great storytelling of these three guys who came in together, and they were assholes, they were badasses, and then they turned over to like the good side. They were beating like everybody dominantly, and then this one turn was all it took. And I was like, I hate that one dude.
Well,
And
that's just like good writing. Yes, you have to keep the audience, the readers, the people who watch wrestling. Well, yeah, because if they were always good, it's like, yeah, it kind of gets a little stale.
Yeah.
Got to keep them guessing.
Yeah, some people like they like it's funny. So when you guys see this episode, it'll obviously be later, but so this last Friday night on SmackDown, Roman Reigns, who coincidentally was one of the guys from the Shield, right? He said he was like, "Oh, John Cena's back. Cool. I expected something different, but Hollywood played me." He's like, because when he came back, it was the same guy, same entrance, same slide through under the rope, same shorts, same promo, same thing. He's like, if I wanted to see that, I would just go back to 2005. He's like, John Cena is boring. It's like doing missionary day after day after day. I was like, did we just compare John Cena to the missionary position?
Yes.
That is the best thing I've ever heard. So I genuinely was like, that is so good to say. I was like, I love it. But yeah, I was thinking about it and I was like, yo, like, unfortunately, John Cena has become like that same dude who he just over time he was the bad guy, then he turned to the face. And since then he's just been is the same dude. And I'm like, wow, like I didn't think about it like that. And then once they pointed it out, I was like, ah, that's so good.
And now you can't unsee it.
No, I can't. In fact, I saw today there was a clip of his match. So John Cena and the Mysterios, Rey Mysterio and his son Dominic wrestled what's called the Bloodline, which is Jimmy and Jey Uso and Roman. And like I saw the same 5 moves that John Cena always hits, and I was like, it really is. Over and over again.
Oh,
I was like, oh no, what has he done?
hey, and look, so when we're writing, that's what we have to try to avoid is doing the same thing over and over. However, that being said, there is a formula. There is like an equation to writing romance. And the authors who are the huge authors follow this, what they call their formula.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell myself, I don't want to write like that, where they have their beginning, there's conflict, there's resolution, but then there's question, and then there's, they have this path that they follow, and it works for them. And my gosh, I know I should do it if I want to have that huge commercial success. I can't bring myself to do it. I just can't. I love the twisty, dark, just jacked up characters and anti-romance. It's like maybe one day I'll learn. To follow the formula. But in the meantime, I'm just writing angsty, twisty, dark romance.
I was like, listen, if everybody followed the formula, there would be no way that we would have just put 2 billionaires in space. Let's just be real.
Oh my God, can you get over that? I can't even believe it.
Yeah, it's like hey, let's be real, okay?
And the weird thing is, I don't necessarily keep up on news a lot, but I know, you know what I mean? Like I read up a little bit. I had no idea that they were planning this. Like, how long has this been going on? All of a sudden, boom, they're in space. I'm like, am I that out of the loop? I had no idea.
It was a trip. It was a trip to see both of them go to space. But I was like, yo, that's insane. Like, that's insane to think about. Like, here's Richard Branson and here's Jeff Bezos, like going up to space. And then they're like outspacing each other. Because one was like, I went 51 miles. And the other was like, I went 63 miles. I'm like, y'all went to space. Cool.
I mean, when you're a billionaire, you have to make up your own sort of competition, I guess.
I guess
at that point, what do you compete?
So my last question for you is going to be, what do you think is the most important aspect to a character?
Relatability to somebody. They're not going to be relatable to everybody, but you want them to be relatable to enough people that, and even on just a little point, they need to be relatable. If they're not, people, they won't remember them, or they'll hate them to the point that they can't get past it to read on, to read the rest of the story.
I like that. That's a great answer. I feel like when Antonio and I talked about it, we legitimately were like, that was the big thing that we talked about. We talked about every person, you have to be relatable in some form. Like someone has to be able to like get drawn to your story, because you can't be like just out of nowhere, like this left field kind of dude. And you hope that people will continue to read. Like you gotta have a place in a character, a setting somewhere that people are going to be familiar with. And like,
right.
Even for like my first character, when I was like working on my character, right, just kind of give you like insight. I originally was like, well, I'm military. I know people will gravitate towards that. And so I try to be like this like hardcore, like, oh, welcome to command. This is who I am. And I was like, it wasn't really sticking for me. And the funny thing is the people who knew me knew it wasn't sticking for me. Other people were like, oh, that's kind of cool. I like that. But then when I finally decided, I was like, hey, guess what, asshole? Everybody's like, that's the guy. That's the one we want. It's like, all right, bet. I was like, so I kind of understood. I was like, at that point, all my friends and family now understood, like, oh, this is really him, just kind of cranked up to 100. And even Antonio was like, I liked that last one versus the one I saw before. So I was like, all right, well, there we go. So,
And the thing about people in general, I can have a conversation with just about anyone, even an asshole, even a complete bitch, because even those people are relatable on some degree. For me, I find that I have a lot in common with a lot of different people. And so I try to put that into a character. I mean, if you were to describe yourself, you'd probably pick 2 or 3 of your best characteristics or things that stand out. But there are probably 1,000 different things about your personality that you just don't really pick up on or you're not thinking of right at this moment. But your loved ones would say, oh, he's this, and they'd probably lift off 50 things that you didn't even think of. And so that's what I try to write into a character, that they're not one-dimensional, not 2, not even 3, not even 4, but they've got a lot of little different things blended into them. That makes a real person.
it's true. I agree. I agree 100%. And that's why I was like, all right, what are my favorite things about me? And I had to like really kind of like look at myself from the outside in. I was like, what are my favorite things about me? And what do I want to like exuberate? Like, what do I want to put out there so that people know? And like, I'm a pop culture reference machine. Like, that's
God,
what I do.
I know I am a fount of useless knowledge. I mean, I couldn't tell you the first thing about politics and how the government works. But if you were to ask me about that 1970s sitcom that nobody remembers, I could list off 10 things.
Yeah, yep. I'm on the same boat. Actually, so when me and a friend of mine, we were talking about like what are things that like who am I going to relate my character to so that people can kind of realize like who I'm trying to like reference so they can gravitate towards me a little bit more. I was like, oh, that's easy. I was like, Deadpool. It's like that's the best way to put it out there. Like that's who I want to be. That's who I'm gonna be, and then that's what I'm gonna start doing. And he was just like, I like it. So I was like, there we go, we fit it. So now I just got done watching Deadpool. So for those who don't know, I was in Massachusetts and I was with my family, my in-laws, and my mother-in-law was like, oh, I love Deadpool and Deadpool 2. Mind you, I had no idea that she even watched those movies.
Yeah.
And so we sat down and watched Deadpool 2 again. And I was just rewatching everything. I was like, oh man, all the mannerisms and the things that he was doing. I was like, that's me. I'm 100% going this route and doing this. But like, it was crazy because then she enjoyed the movies and she thought it was hilarious. But then when I started teaching her like all the inside jokes, she's like, this movie's even 10 times better than I thought it was.
That's awesome. I love Deadpool. Look, I mean, I have yet to find someone who doesn't really, they may not, they may be offended by it, but they still can't say they hate Deadpool,
Yes.
I have yet to find somebody who is just like, I can't watch that, or I hated it. I've never found anybody like that. And if I did, then they're not my friends.
It's like listen.
Yeah. Look, we have to see eye to eye on at least a few things.
Right. Be like, I hated Deadpool. I don't like you. Unfriend.
Okay, well, it was nice knowing you.
Be like, I would just be like Facebook in real life, like, I unfriend you. Like, what was the commercial? The commercial that did it where the girl's like, I unfriend you. She's like, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. So those are it for my heavy like hitting questions. So Ella, we have one more thing that we have to get through, which is the second greatest segment on this podcast, because the first is the Red Dogs Power Rankings that you can find every Sunday on, the debate show. And so this is the 3 Count Podcast, 10 count questions. And Ella, this is how it works. I'm going to fire off 10 questions at you, rapid fast. Whatever's the first thought that comes to your mind, that's your answer.
Okay, I'm scared, but okay.
So we're going to put on the imaginary timer for added pressure. Bing! And here we go. Othello or Moby Dick?
Othello.
Favorite movie?
Jaws.
X-Men or Avengers?
X-Men.
Favorite color?
Red.
Sonic or Mario?
Mario.
Favorite nursery rhyme?
I don't know. I actually don't know any nursery rhymes.
That's okay. We'll take that answer. Alien or Predator?
Oh, no, that's just mean. Oh no, Alien versus Predator.
Okay, I'll take it. I'll take it. Favorite podcast?
It would have to be you guys's, the one with you and Antonio.
Hey, yeah, Secret Origins as well as Nerds of the Round Table.
Nerds of the Round Table. Yes.
Yeah. Night owl or early bird?
Night owl.
And then last but not least, my favorite question to ask every single person that comes on this show: favorite curse word?
Fuck.
I was like, I know. I think the funny thing is, like, I know this word, so that's why I was
yes, I know, and I'm trying to do better about not. But it's not really a curse word. It's a sentence enhancer.
It is. I like to call it a word enhancer, but I like sentence enhancer too.
Yes, I mean, if you were just I had a nice day, I had a nice fucking day. Like it's completely different meaning, right?
Right. Like, how was your day? Fucking incredible.
That's right, incredible. Right. It makes everything better.
It does. All right. So that is it for all the questions I have. So the last thing I need from you is to let our viewers know our viewers and our listeners actually know where they can find you.
I am on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok as Ella_Dominguez. On Facebook, The Art of Submission. Yeah. Those are my main ones, or EllaDominguezBooks.com.
Yeah. So that is it for us today. This is the 3 Count Podcast presents Now Enter the Ring with Ella Dominguez, and I'm your host, Clifford Red Dog Miller, the Sherpa who leads you to the top of the mountain of this thing called wrestling. It is what it is. But you guys know what to do. Tune into the next episode and be there, or you just wait till this episode ends, the outro plays, and our next episode is going to play right after that. Peace. What's going on, 3 Count Nation? I'm Clifford Red Dog Miller with the catchphrase. But what I really want to do right now, go to twitter.com, right? Go over there, find us at the 3Count_pod, give us a follow, give us a like, give us a comment. We want to talk to you guys. Go to IG at the 3 Count Pod. Give us a like, give us a follow, leave us a comment. We want to interact with you. Go to youtube.com, give a subscribe, turn the bell on, turn the notifications, leave a comment. We want to talk to you. Go to anchor.fm/the 3 Count Podcast, and in there, you can leave us a message, and we will talk to you. Basically, what I'm trying to tell you is that we want to talk to you. We want to have fun with you guys, and we love listening to what you guys have to say. Also, one thing I need you to do for me, the 3 Count Podcast also has merchandise. At ProWrestlingTees.com/the 3 Count Pod. Please go buy our t-shirts. We love you guys, and we hope you love us too. So show us some support, please.